It's been 1 year since I blew up my entire life. I quit my 20-year corporate career, sold most of what I owned, packed up my entire life, and moved across the world to Bali. And quitting my job was not the hard part, guys. The hard part was what happened after. When I landed in Bali and your entire nervous system screams, "What the hell did I just do?" You go through this major identity shift, this entire upgrade of who you are, and no one talks about this enough. So if you didn't catch my previous video, go check that one out. I tell you my story of how I actually quit my 9 to 5, the steps I took, some of the lessons that I wish I learned. And in this video, I'm gonna talk about what happened when I actually got there, what identity shift I had to go through, the massive upgrade, all of the nervous system regulation that I needed to do to embody this new version of myself, a digital nomad, a full-time business owner, and entrepreneur. So if you are someone who's considering quitting your 9 to 5, starting your own business, or maybe becoming a digital nomad, this video is for you. You're gonna get so many lessons that I personally have experienced and wish I knew when I went on this journey myself to hopefully make this transition a bit easier for you when you go and do it. So hi friends, welcome back to Money Breath Magic. This is where we talk all things money, mindset, strategy, nervous system regulation, energetics, and I throw a little bit of my digital nomad experience in there. This video is top of mind for me because if you didn't catch the last video, I shared that I am moving to Spain in just 3 weeks' time. So all of these old feelings and emotions and just overwhelm that I was feeling when I first made the transition to Bali are coming up again. But since I've already been through this experience, I know how to integrate, and I'm doing this on the front end this time. I already know what to expect. So I wanna get you prepared as well. So when you go to make this transition, you are ready and this transition will go as smoothly as possible for you as well. So if you haven't caught the first video, go back and watch it, but let's just do a quick recap. What I covered on that video was my background. I was a corporate executive, was in corporate for 20 years. I decided to quit my job. I had started my own business 2 years prior before I quit my job. So the way that I did it was very planned out. I knew where I was going. I knew what financial runway I needed. This was a very thought out process. So I share how I did that. Go watch that video. I think it's really important steps if you're going to make this transition. So I sold most of what I owned, packed up my entire life, and I moved over to Bali. And so even though I was really prepared with like the step-by-steps, I had my savings, my emergency fund all put away. I knew what my runway was. I already had a business that was growing. I had clients. I knew what I wanted to do in my business. So I had the structure. I had the strategy. And as someone who's type A, like, duh, this is like normal for me, is like, I need a plan. But the thing I didn't plan for was the internal shifts that I was going to experience. Like, of course I knew there was gonna be this transitional period of you're gonna wake up on that first Monday after you quit your job and say like, holy shit, what did I just do? Like, I expected that. I had talked to friends who had gone through this experience. I was immersing myself in other YouTube videos, podcasts, and everything. So I felt like I was prepared. I knew what was gonna happen. Whew, but the minute it happened, I was not fully prepared of how deep the identity change was going to feel. So I wanna prepare you for that, and that's what we're gonna cover on this video today. So first, let's just talk about the identity of being a business owner versus the identity of being an employee. And these kind of seem pretty like self-explanatory, right? When you're an employee, you show up for this company. They are the ones who are dictating what you do, how you spend your time, depending on the type of company that you worked for. I worked for a huge company and I worked there for 12 years. So I knew the ins and outs of my job. I knew what I needed to do every day, every month, every year, like except for like big projects that were coming up, but I already knew the systems, I knew my role. You know, it was comfortable. And so when you have a company that is dictating what you need to do every day, there is a sense of comfort because you know what to expect. And you know what you're expecting to be paid. Every year, I knew I expected a 3% raise. You know, I had a bonus target. I knew what I expected to get within reason of my annual bonus. So there's a lot of safety and security that you feel internally in your body, in your nervous system, because it is a known. I know every single day what is going to happen. And that's what bored me to death, okay? So within this, you already had clear performance targets, like you had your goals set for you every single year. I know exactly what I need to do to be successful. That gives you some sort of validation because you know if I meet these performance targets, I'm going to get a score of 1 to 5. I know what I need to do to feel validated, to feel successful, to feel like I'm good at my job. It taps into this like worthiness, like, oh, I was getting 5s on my performance ratings. I was constantly getting good reviews. My team loved me. I was getting great scores from my team members. I was getting great scores from my leadership. I felt worthy. I felt good at my job. And this like was all wrapped up in this like set known standard of what is expected within corporate. And then the other thing within corporate is we somewhat build this identity around our title that we get. And I tried to not let myself get caught up in this too much, but I saw it so much in the hierarchy of the way that corporate is built. So within my accounting department, you start out as a staff accountant, then you're a senior accountant, then you move to manager, senior manager, director, senior director, vice president, and so on. So it's a hierarchy, and most corporations are built this way. So the more that you move up the ladder, your identity starts to also expand with that elevation. So for me, I started as a manager when I started in the company, and then I had worked my way up to a senior director. And as a senior director, you are executive leadership. So you are seen as an executive, you're making executive decisions, you are the one that people come to when there's problems, when there's challenges, you are the one who are figuring things out. And with that title and with that expanded responsibility, you take on the identity of someone who is quote unquote more successful, or someone who has more power, or, you know, you guys see this in certain corporations. The people that are at like the very top have like big egos sometimes. Like their egos are wrapped up so much in like their role is like, I'm a vice president or I'm a senior VP or what, you know, like our egos can get so caught up in this identity just because of the title that we have in the company. And, you know, not everybody is like this, right? But there were certain people that I would see this happen with, and it rubbed me the wrong way, like so much. Even when I was an auditor and I was going at different companies, I felt like this was like a common thing that would happen sometimes at the top, is where people's egos, they would almost, it was like this like power struggle, right? And so they were like constantly in conflict, trying to like prove like who was right, whose opinion mattered, who got to make the decision. And it was like this whole like just ego powered tripping, you know? And I just like couldn't stand it. Wasn't for me. But that's in like the corporate role. So within that, like your identity is wrapped up in your title. It's wrapped up in your performance review. Your success is tied up in how much your performance ratings are, how you reach your goals. It's very structured. It's very like predictable. And then when you move over into an entrepreneurship space, a business owner space, you lose all of that. Literally all of it. Everything is now self-led. Even your income. Inconsistent income happens. You don't have your consistent paycheck, which like, duh, we all know that. But that triggers a lot within people. And that's why I work with people on this. But even your validation. So like previously when you were an employee, whether you realize it or not, you're getting validation, like feeling worthy, feeling good enough, feeling successful based on these like performance metrics that they were giving you. I meet my goals, I feel worthy, I feel successful, I feel good, I feel smart. That doesn't exist when you're a business owner. You have to give that validation to yourself. There's no longer SOPs. There's no longer processes that you follow. There's no longer some tech person that you can call on the phone whenever something like breaks on your computer. Like, no, you have to go figure that out. I had to learn how to transition my whole email account from Microsoft to Gmail. I felt like a queen when I figured that out, because like, I am not a tech girly, you know, but you wear all the hats in your business, and it comes with a lot of frustration sometimes, a lot of overwhelm, a lot of like, how in the world am I supposed to do this? It's very self-led. And then the other piece of it is the whole like visibility aspect and the rejection aspect of it. When you are a business owner, You have to put yourself out there to be able to call in income. You have to let yourself be seen. You have to let yourself be heard. You have to share your opinions. And that can be terrifying sometimes for people. I know I'm still processing this, especially as I step up into new levels of leadership and coaching people in a new capacity, in a new way. It brings up these fears. And the thing about when you move into entrepreneurship is this happens at every single level. And so you have to get familiar and comfortable with the feeling of being stretched, of being in the uncomfortable. There's no longer this stability that you have. It's this constant, if you're growing, this constant pull that you feel like you are just being stretched. And like there is a point where maybe it's a little too much and we need to back down a little bit. But if you are growing and you're growing your business, it's going to feel uncomfortable. And that was like one of the biggest lessons that I had when I like moved over and started this full time in Bali is getting familiar with the feeling of being uncomfortable, with the feeling of being in the unfamiliar. Because when you are uncomfortable, you are growing. It actually means you're alive, you know? And that's like the reframe that I had to make for myself is when I am stepping into the unknown and I'm putting myself in these positions, in these places, literally geographically and in my business, that means I'm alive. That means I'm experiencing life. And so in this new identity, you also have to get comfortable hearing the word no. Hearing, hey, I don't think this is for me, getting feedback from clients or people who you are pitching your services to, and they're like, I don't think this is for me. Like you have to get used to hearing no. And you have to get used to giving yourself the validation that I know what I offer to the world is amazing. It's going to change people's lives. And I have to keep going, keep hearing no until I finally get a yes. And the whole thing about this identity shift of moving from employee into business owner entrepreneurship is your income level will never outgrow your identity. So if your identity is someone who is at a certain income level where you feel worthy and you feel valuable at $2,000 a month, just throwing a number out there, if you don't feel comfortable or feel that your services are valuable past that amount of money, you will never make it. Because if you only feel worthy at $2,000, that your services are worth $2,000, you will not feel comfortable charging someone $10,000 for that. So we have to continue to grow as a person, expand our identity so we can also expand our income and we can also expand our impact. All right, so let's take it back to my experience when I first landed in Bali. Fly 24 hours across the world, first class, it was amazing. And then land in Bali and I was like, holy shit, what did I do? This is absolutely insane. And thankfully, I had a friend that was there. We actually met in Bali the previous year. So I actually had someone who could I like go get coffee with and like help me integrate a little bit. She was there for a couple weeks and then I was on my own. But it was really nice to have like a familiar face when I got there. But what I found myself immediately doing is once I caught up on sleep, because let me tell you, the jet lag is pretty crazy. But I land. I'm free. I'm literally free. I have all the time in the world. Time is mine. I had a business, so I had some client responsibilities that I needed to do. But I immediately went into pouring myself into work. I immediately continued to bring the patterns from being an employee into my business. So I was working every single day, trying to hustle. I was bringing in this whole mentality that like my self-worth was tied to my productivity. So I was just like trying to keep myself busy, trying to say, okay, I need to go make money. And if you listen to my last episode, I had runway. I had prepared for this. I had money that was going to last me for a year or two if I wanted to. I didn't need to work. Like I had prepared to like rest, take time off. And plus I had some income from my business that was going to cover. Bali is not expensive, okay? Like Bali, you can live like a queen over there for pretty cheap compared to America. But even despite that, my self-worth is tied to how much I get done, is to how busy I am, to being productive. I did not know how to rest at all. And so it was like I brought in this old identity of who I was being in my former life into this new identity where I finally have created the freedom for myself. I was able to get up on a Monday and not work. I was able to go get a coffee and sit on the beach, go walk the beach. I was able to go to Pilates whenever I wanted to in the middle of the day, but I wasn't taking advantage of that when I first landed because I immediately thought, nope, I need to go make money. I need to go be productive. I need to go prove myself. I need to prove that I am worthy because I was tying my success to external validation. Go listen to the first video that I ever posted on YouTube. It's all about how when we put our version of success, when we put our definition of success, when it is tied to external circumstances, you will never feel validated. You will never feel successful because you will constantly be chasing the next thing. You hit a goal, nope, it's the next thing. The goalpost is constantly moving. We need to define our own version of success by how we want to feel. And I had literally just created that. My version of success, if I thought about it, was my time freedom, was flexibility, was doing work that mattered, get to work on my terms, wherever, whenever, to be a digital nomad and travel the world. Like I was successful. But because I didn't work on that identity shift prior to getting to Bali, it all got triggered for me. And so it was like I had left corporate, but corporate still came with me. The mentality that I had in corporate, the way that my nervous system was wired when I was in corporate, the way that I defined success and productivity, it was all still there. And that's when I had the realization that freedom without regulating our nervous system and actually creating safety in the body was a one-way road to burnout. And so as I started noticing this, I started shifting it and I started going inward, and I finally allowed myself to slow down, to rest, to go, I was in Bali for God's sake, like go do some meditation and yoga and just be. You know, if you haven't been to Bali, it is like the most incredible place to reset your nervous system. And I finally allowed myself to do that. But when I did that, a lot of grief started to come up because I was grieving this old life that I had. I was grieving this old version of myself that I thought I was working towards, you know, this badass corporate girly who made me successful for 20 years, you know, and like I said, my whole identity of success was all tied up into this, but I had to let her go. And it's something that I didn't realize was going to happen, but I had to grieve this whole dream that I had been working towards for so long. It's like you set this dream for yourself. I kind of think about it in the way of like a breakup as well, as I felt like this when I went through my breakup, is you have this vision for your life or for that relationship, and you have all these future plans and what you think you're going to do. And it's like when you finally say, no, actually, this isn't what I want. I was telling myself a lie. I was telling myself a story that wasn't actually true. And I had been working so hard towards something that I actually didn't, deep down, my soul didn't actually want. And so there was like a period of grief of actually like detaching from that old story and that old dream that I had and letting it go. And this is when I had to start figuring out like, okay, what makes me happy? What do I truly want? What does success look like for me in this next 10 years of my life? What do I want to create in my business? How do I want to impact people? What is my why? I think that's so important before you actually make a transition like this, is what is your why? Why do you actually want to do this? Is it because you deep down want to experience this and this is what your soul is calling you to do? Or is it just something that you see on the internet and people posting on social media that it's so glamorous, this glamorous life? You know, it's like getting really clear on your why. Why do you have a business? Why are you doing the work that you want to do? And so it was like this period of time where it was a lot of introspection and a lot of pouring back into myself. And I'm really grateful that I gave myself the space to do this, because when you're in this transition of becoming a digital nomad, especially at the beginning when you get somewhere new, you don't know anybody. You're there alone. And so a lot of the time is spent alone. And I was living alone before I went into this lifestyle. So I was very comfortable with being alone, but it's a whole different experience when you're somewhere across the world and maybe you don't speak the local language. You don't know how to get around. Like in Bali, I was cruising around on a scooter. Have never ridden a scooter in my entire life. Traffic is insane in Bali, absolutely insane. And it's like a free-for-all out there. It's a little uncomfortable. I had to take scooter lessons because it was terrifying. Or you're riding on the back of a scooter. They have Gojeks, but getting around. In Chicago, I was used to riding the train. There's no train in Bali, and so you're figuring out where to eat, what food you want to order, how to still stay healthy, what gym you want to go to. And it's a lot of this is done by yourself. You're eating alone, walking the beach alone, going out alone, And so it is the most beautiful experience because you get to know yourself on the deepest level. And I'm so grateful for that experience because it helped bring so much more out of me of who I am and how I actually want to serve the world. And then you also experience loneliness in your business because going back to where I started this video, you don't have a team or leadership or direction or SOPs or processes. You are there figuring it out all on your own. So there's no one there that knows what you're going through. There's no one there that can help you when you have challenges that come up. You don't have a team that you can confide in or rely on. It all falls on you until you start building that infrastructure out for yourself, of course. But this is why it was really important for me to have a coach as I went through this transition and helped me just stay grounded and someone that I could rely on whenever I had these feelings coming up within myself to just, be able to have someone to vent to. And I had to learn to give that validation and that recognition to myself because there was no longer these list of goals that somebody was going to rate me on and tell me that I was doing a good job. I had to pat myself on the back. When you make this transition, you have to be your biggest cheerleader. You need to celebrate yourself when there's wins and when there's quote unquote losses or failures. You need to celebrate yourself just because you posted the YouTube video. You need to celebrate yourself because you showed up on Instagram and talked about your services. You need to celebrate yourself because you went on that sales call and even though that they said no, you actually pitched to them and told them how you could help change their life. You have to celebrate even when things feel like you're failing because that is what is going to keep you going because it is going to feel hard at times. And then let's now talk about the money aspect of this. It's a huge change, of course. You have this corporate paycheck that comes every week or every 2 weeks that you no longer have. Your nervous system feels safe when you work in a corporate environment because you are getting a consistent paycheck. And so inevitably, when you are in entrepreneurship, there's going to be big months, there's going to be lower months, and it's going to be like this sometimes. It's not always this upward trajectory. Although we would love to see that, we need to create safety in our body when there actually is an income dip in our business. For me, what happened was last year, I started the year off with, it was 10 clients, right? And so I had this consistent income and I felt safe because of the life that I was living, the amount of income I was making, it was perfect. Last year, I lost 3 clients. And it was very triggering for me because it was the first time I ever had clients disengage with me. And it wasn't for anything that I had done. It was just different circumstances of why we needed to part ways. It triggered my nervous system because I was like, holy shit, of course I started making it about me. What could I have done better? And you want to reflect on this stuff, but knowing that it had nothing to do with the service that I was providing, I immediately was freaking out because I was losing consistent income that I had. Even though, remember, I have a safety net. I am safe. There's plenty of money that I have stored away for situations just like this. And so because I have the tools and I know how to process this type of stuff, I had the immediate little freak out, and then I was able to bring myself back, do some regulation practices to calm my nervous system again, and look at it from a clear lens. Because when our nervous system is activated and we go into fight or flight, and like in this instance, you lose a client and you immediately panic. You start like, okay, how can I replace this income? You start pitching yourself, start like creating offers that aren't even ready to be launched, start like accepting clients that you've lowered the prices for because you just need some sort of income to replace it, you know? And when we're able to come from a regulated place, we're able to actually think clearly about the long term. And in my situation, I knew that I was in the middle of a pivot in my business. I had been doing just bookkeeping and CFO services for the last couple of years, and I knew I wanted to pivot into coaching and start talking about more of this type of work. Like, I'm a breathwork and somatics facilitator. I wanted to start incorporating that into the work with my clients. I wanted to start doing money mindset work and started to do more like business coaching. And the 3 clients that I had disengaged from were my most challenging clients. They were the ones that took the most amount of time for me to do. And so I was able to look at this situation and say, wow, look, I just had so much time clear up in my schedule. And so much just even like energetic capacity, because they were, again, they took a lot of mental space because they were more challenging work to do. And so I got a lot of my energy back. I got time in my schedule to start focusing on my coaching, to start focusing on this YouTube channel. And I was able to see the big vision. But we need to be able to create safety in the body, because if we don't feel safe, I would have immediately said, okay, I need to go make some money right away. And so that's why nervous system regulation tools are so important to help us when we have these inevitable income dips as an entrepreneur, so we can feel regulated throughout those. We need to create capacity in the body to withstand these income fluctuations that we have, because you can have so much money in the bank. You can have so much money and you could still not feel safe. It's all about creating capacity in the body to where we feel safe. We have what we need. Our basic needs are met. There is no emergency. We are safe. And so now, as I'm working through this transition of about to go to Spain in a few weeks, I have started to do some things differently this time. I feel way more prepared than when I first went to Bali. I am actually going to Spain with a plan. I have a structure in place of how I'm going to create my schedule. So I know when I'm going to take client calls, when I'm going to be working on YouTube or content, writing, I'm going to have a plan in place. And of course, I'm going to allow for flexibility if, somebody wants to go to coffee or something like that. But so I already have a plan. It's not just this blank canvas of, okay, what do I do now? And so I'm also going to allow myself time to rest. I'm not going to go over there and just say, all right, I need to bust my ass to build my business. I trust that my business is growing as it has this last year, just naturally, as it's meant to. I know when I create more capacity in my body, in my business, meaning creating more systems and structure in place, I know that my business is going to naturally grow to fill in that capacity. So I'm also prioritizing my nervous system, because I know how important it is to feel regulated when we're going through major transitions like this. Here are some tools that I use and I'm going to be using when I go to Spain that help me stay regulated, especially when it comes to my money. So I already know what the cost of living is around over there, how much my living expenses should be around, my gym, my apartment, all of that. So I already know what my base number is that I am going to plan to spend each month. That also tells me how much runway I have in my savings account. So I know if I were to not make another dollar in my business right now, how many months I have stored away that I could live off of. With that, I am going to be checking on my money every single week. This is something that I teach to my community and my clients, is a money date. Every Friday, I check in with my money for just a half hour. Just look at what I spent that week. Is it aligned with my goals? Am I noticing myself purchasing a lot of stuff frivolously that isn't aligned with how I want to be spending my money? I look at what money has come in, make any transfers, pay credit cards, all that type of stuff. I have a system in place that makes sure I am in touch with my money on a weekly basis. This creates safety in the nervous system because you know what's going on. There's no surprises. You're not avoiding it. You are in tune. You have a relationship with your money. As a breathwork facilitator, I always prioritize breathwork because it is so powerful, guys. Like, it is so powerful. It helps you access your subconscious mind. It helps you rewire old beliefs that are stuck. It helps you release the anxiousness, the overwhelm, just all of these feelings that are sitting beneath the surface, especially as you're making a transition like moving overseas. I'm prioritizing breath work every single week and every single day, really. It doesn't have to be this deep journey, although I do love those. It can literally be a 5-minute routine in the morning just to ground yourself and get into the body. With that, I'm also prioritizing scripting as I move over there. And what I mean by this is like scripting my ideal day when I am in Spain. So I've been sitting down with my journal and just writing out as if it's in the present tense of what a day would look like for me while I'm in Spain. And so I'm talking about how I spend my days, what I'm doing, where I'm going, what I'm seeing, what I'm experiencing, what I'm eating, what I'm tasting, getting into the senses and really drawing what my new identity is going to be when I land in Spain. Scripting is amazing. It's an amazing manifestation tool because you are literally putting it out into the universe before it actually happens. But the other thing it does is it helps your nervous system for when you actually land in Spain, in my case. When you get there, since you've been scripting, and then I stop and I visualize it and just feel it in my body, because once you get to that location, your body already recognizes it. It already knows what it feels like. It's already been here before. The amazing thing about our subconscious mind is that when we visualize and we see ourselves and we immerse ourselves in the feelings, bring in all the senses, we touch, taste, feel, smell, see, did I say them all here? Bring in all the senses of what does it actually feel like to be there? What am I gonna see? What am I gonna hear? What am I gonna touch? What am I gonna smell, taste? And when we visualize that and we bring that into our subconscious, it doesn't know whether it's real or imagined. It just knows that it's happening. And so it feels like that experience is happening already. So when you fly over there, your body remembers how it feels to be there. And that helps your nervous system because it's not this new thing that gets triggered. It's like, oh, I feel safe. We've already done this 1,000 times. So I've been prioritizing scripting and visualizing myself in this location before I actually get there. And so recognizing the identity shift that's really going to happen for you. If you're in that middle period of figuring out, okay, am I leaving my 9-to-5? Am I gonna go be a digital nomad? Or am I just gonna go start a business and become an entrepreneur? I think when you recognize that there is going to be a massive identity shift within that transition and start doing work before it actually happens, it is going to make the process so much easier for you. So I hope these tips and my experience is giving you a little bit of insight of what you can expect as you go through this transition yourself. I'm going to be heading to Spain soon, so I will be sharing a lot more content about my journey in Spain, my experience of this transition, how my business is growing over there, and of course, lots of more money content to come. If any of that interests you and you want to follow along, hit subscribe. Let me know in the comments below what you got out of this, especially if you're making this transition yourself. I'd love to hear how it's going for you. Have an amazing week ahead, and I will catch you all later. Bye.